Well, I'm here today to say you can make it. I'm here today to say and I'm going to share my story as evidence, but I'm here to say that if God can forgive me, if God can use me, if I can be confident in his grace, if I can have assurance that he loves me, that I'm enjoyed even when I royally blow it, that so can you. When Dave Sliker interviewed me the first night of the conference, who here was there for that? Okay, cool, so about half of you. That was only half of the story. There's another side that I would like to share with you this afternoon. Now, for those who do feel defeated, those who do feel the pressure is too strong, and you ask, how could I have confidence? How could I be assured that God could love me, that I could be enjoyed by God? Well, I have a story to tell you. Imagine the next time you go home, campers, that might be in a week or 2 weeks for those who are visiting for the conference, maybe sooner. You go home and you sit down on your couch, you turn on the television, and you see President Barack Obama and the president of North Korea in the Oval Office. They're smiling. They seem to be getting along. You may even think they're friends. And you see the president look into the camera. He says, "Good morning, America. I have good news. The former dictator of North Korea called me this very morning. In fact, only an hour ago, weeping, sobbing on the phone, crying out for forgiveness for all the atrocities he's done to his people, begging for forgiveness and grace." And I responded to him, "Well, you have slave labor camps, you have a hostile nuclear program. How can I believe you that you've suddenly changed?" And he responded, I could hear the grief in his heart over the phone. And he said, "I've dismantled the slave camps. I forfeited the nuclear program. I've opened up the gates between North and South Korea. I'm a changed man. I've shown my grief by my actions." And so as the President of the United States, I forgave him. And now I have elected him to be my chief advisor of the United States of America. Now, for those of you who think that's an absolutely absurd example, let me assure you of something. What God has done with us is infinitely more offensive than that example. The Bible says that before we give our lives to God, that we are at enmity with him, i.e., we were enemies of God. But when we said yes to Jesus, when we surrender our life, even though it's weak, even though it's broken, even though we fall continually, John of Patmos, the last book in the New Testament, he calls us kings. That God took a former enemy and gave us authority, power, and influence. An enemy of God, suddenly placed as a king in his kingdom. Let me assure you today that there is nothing that you did or something you missed out on that you wish you would have done that excludes you from the grace of God. Even if it happened this very moment, if the lowest point in your life was 3 hours ago, you didn't run too far. His grace is stronger, his reach is longer. And I can assure you that we can have confidence in his grace and in his love. When I was 13 years old, who's here? 13, by the way. Good little portion. Got a little cluster over there. When I was 13 years old, I was in public school, And around 13 years of age, you're a little bit smarter, a little bit stronger. Hormones are beginning to rage in a new way. You're looking at the other gender in a slightly different light. Not necessarily bad, but it's all true. We can admit it. And as I turned 13, I met a guy on my street, and we became best friends very quickly. Every single day after school, we would go over to his house and play with these fake guns and weaponry his dad would buy. And typically, every single weekend, I would spend the night at his house. And at his house, after his parents had gone to bed, him and I developed a system in which we would go down into their basement, into their parents' closet, and steal his father's pornography. Very quickly, I was addicted to lust. Since he was my best friend and our lives overlapped considerably, and since his house was, they were agnostics or atheists, they didn't believe in God, cussing was normal. So I decided, well, if I'm hanging out with him a lot, I guess I might as well cuss too. Began cussing like a sailor. It was horrible. I was incredibly disrespectful to my parents. In fact, I got in trouble all of the time. And what's odd is that he had more respect for his parents, even though his father had a horrifying anger issue. Now, what is odd about this scenario is that every once in a while, I would try and evangelize him. Say, hey, bud, if you don't change your life, it's not going to end well for you. He would look at me saying, well, my family is agnostic, so I actually just don't believe in that. So then I'd reach in my pocket, and I had these gospel tracts, so I'd hand it to him, and I would just awkwardly stare at him as he read it. And he was honestly curious, so he'd read through the page and get to the part where if you've sinned, you're going to go to hell, and so you need to believe in Jesus. And so he'd look at me and say, well, I just don't believe in this. I'm like, just give your life to God, come on. But what I realized, one, it wasn't working. But the reason why was because I was looking at my own hypocrisy in the face. That the message I was speaking with my mouth was completely opposite from what my life was preaching. That I was saying, change your lifestyle. Change the way you think about God. And internally, he's thinking, well, you don't look any different than me, and I obey my parents more than you obey yours, and you're a Christian. So why do I have to obey you? That same year, I was in an art class. The teacher walks in. She hands us these long pieces of art paper and says, I want you to draw a portrait of the person that is most meaningful in your life. So I decided, well, I am a Christian, so I should draw a picture of Jesus. So I guess that's what I'm going to do. So I grabbed the markers and I was coloring about Jesus. And by the time I was about 90% completed, I started getting embarrassed, thinking, wait a second, what if people see this? What are they going to think about me? They know my life. I express it to them regularly. But what is their opinion of me going to change? So as I was drawing and finishing the final details, I moved my arm around it and tried to, I didn't try to be awkward about it, but I was just trying to hide it because I didn't want people to see. And my friend, not the same one as my neighbor, but my other friend, he looks across and he says, oh, cool, you're drawing a picture about your brother Jesse. Okay. And at the very top, whenever I was covering it, I didn't quite cover all of Jesus. So he could see the J-E, and he just figured, oh, my brother's name's Jesse, so I guess you must really like your brother then. So I had a choice. I could have said, actually, my life might not add up to what it should. But even in my weakness, even though it's embarrassing in this context, the most meaningful person in my life is Jesus. But I didn't say that. I simply looked away and finished strong. So my first teenage year, I'm confronted with moral failure. Pornography, cussing, rebellion, anger. In the Bible, lust is associated with adultery. Anger, if wrongly expressed, is associated with murder, and rebellion is associated with sorcery. So from the get-go, I'm guilty in God's eyes for murder, for adultery, and for sorcery. Complete and utter failure. A couple years later, some time goes by. My brothers and some friends, we go on a camping trip about 4 hours south of here. It's an amazing spot. A river runs down, and just on the opposite side, there's a 50-foot wall. We go cliff jumping, and there's caves, and it's an incredible place. So on the drive up, we stop at a particular restaurant. Now, I thought I was wise by making a particular decision. I did not bring my license because I didn't want to get stuck driving. So, after I enter into this restaurant, I order a treat, and I walk out. And the moment I open the doors, I realize, as I'm gazing through the tinted windows of a van, that every seat in that van is taken except for the driver's seat. So I open up the door, and I said, "Hey guys, I don't know if you knew this, but I can't drive because I don't have my license." And they replied, "Oh, no, it's going to work out. You just drive, just go the speed limit. No one's going to find out." And I said, No. I legally can't do this. I think it's a federal offense. It's completely against the law." And they said, no, it's going to be fine. Just get in there and we'll take care of you. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to get horrible. So I told them, I said, just watch. I'm going to get pulled over. And then my only option is doom. So this was before we had iPods and the map application. So we had to print out MapQuest directions. We didn't even do that. We were doing the buddy following system. So our lead car exits the parking lot. And so I reluctantly get into the driver's seat and we go on. So as usual, after a camping trip, we are having a man debrief in the van, laughing, enjoying ourselves. And all of a sudden, we realize that our lead car veers to the right and takes an exit. We're driving, we're just passing them. Oh no. And because the drive home is slightly complicated, I need to catch them as soon as I can. So I'm driving without a license, and I'm about to be speeding. I just have to do it. So I gun it, flying down. Find the next off-ramp, take it, turn around, go back the way I came, and I take the correct exit. They're about 10 miles ahead of us. And the rate I'm going, it'll take about 7 minutes to catch up. Then I enter a construction zone. I'm going 25 miles an hour over the speed limit. So I think there's a federal offense for not having my license. I think that it's a federal offense to be going 25 miles an hour over the speed limit, and we're in a construction zone. So the road combines into one because they're doing construction on one side. So cars are zipping by on the other lane. And there's a sharper turn that runs into a patch of woods on my right. And I'm thinking they're probably just over there. If I can just get past this, we're going to be okay. So just as we're driving and turning, a cop car, oh, heart drops. And then for those of you who drive, you know the feeling when you might not be speeding, but you look in your rear view mirror anyways, just to make sure he's not doing a U-turn. So I look, it's like, oh, please, this is not the right time. Please don't have this happen. I peek, there he is. U-turn. Oh, dropped even deeper. Lights turn on. Oh, doom. I'm done. I'm toast. They're gonna throw me in jail. So then I start trying to convince my brothers, hey, and my brother's name is Jesse. He's an identical twin, so we look a lot alike. And I'm thinking, hey, this is a good idea. You look just like me. Give me your license. So if my older brother, and I absolutely love my older brother, this was one of the powerful, one of the moments that he was a role model in my life. There was a lot of other interesting things that happened, but he pipes in and he says, Joe, even though I was mainly the guy to tell you to drive in the first place, it would be wrong for you to take that license. And you have to face this directly. And I'm thinking, I know that's right, but I don't want to do that, and it's your fault anyways. I'm turmoil. So I pull over. The cop car hones in, and it's dead silent. It's so awkward in the car. They all convinced me to do this. I told them I'm going to get pulled over. No one could have guessed that I would have been speeding without a license in a work zone. So the cop gets out. He comes over, and I roll down my window, and he says, sir, do you realize what you were doing? I said, yes, sir. Yeah, I do. He says, okay, can I see your license? I said, yeah, I actually don't have it with me. And he says, okay, can I have at least your social security number so I can prove that you're not, a drug cartel guy from Mexico, or that you're not part of the Taliban? I need to be able to identify you. And I said, yeah, I actually don't have that memorized. So I can imagine he's internally laughing, but he's awkwarded out because I don't think he's ever experienced this before. So he says, okay, well, I'm going to go back into the car, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Just find a way that I can verify your identity. So I respond, okay, yeah, I will. So I'm calling everybody except my mom. I'm thinking, hey, can you go to this place? This is where my wallet is. It has probably my license, or if you can go up to my dad's office, there's a lockbox there that has my social security card. Oh, sorry, I'm at work, I can't do it. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm at this place, I can't do it. Oh, sorry, I'm out of town. Oh my gosh. No luck, no chance, complete doom is before me. So he comes back again. Any luck? Yeah, no. There's no luck at all. So he says, sir, will you please step out of the vehicle? Yes. So he takes me to the back, and he says, young man, there's somebody with the name of Joseph Meyer, with your same build, your same height, and he has a warrant out for his arrest. Unless you can prove in 5 minutes that you're not him, I'm taking you to jail. Oh! So I run back and I call all those same people again. Still not my mom. And none of them can help. And I told them the whole story. I'm going to go to jail. 4 hours away. You can't go to my house for 5 minutes. Nah, man, I'm sorry. That stinks, bro. So he comes back, and we're all freaking out in the car. They're trying to be cool back there because it's not really their fault, but everyone really knows the situation. So the cop comes up, and for all I know, it's over. It's on my record. My license is going to be suspended. 2 federal offenses. This is horrible. He comes up, has me roll down the window, and he looks at me in the eye. And he says, sir, you are free to go. Friends, there are some in this room where you have done impossible things that you think deserve undeniable judgment from God. That when you logically break it down, there's no chance for you. But with a humble heart, the contrite spirit, in humility, God can say those same words to you. You are free to go. The next year, after experiencing that wonderful sense of forgiveness, I was 17. I'm walking down the halls of IHOP, and Stuart Greaves, he bumps into me. He says, "Hey, Joe, hey, why don't you do the Fire in the Night internship?" I'm like, I never thought about doing that. I'm going to go to Berkeley Music School, but I guess if that somehow happens, then sure, why not? So 6 months go by, and through a crazy series of events, I'm in Fire in the Night. Couldn't plan it, couldn't have foreseen it. It happened. So it's the first night. Sorry, it's the first week. Third or fourth night, I can't remember. And for all I knew, there was a brass ceiling on my head. I couldn't feel God, I couldn't sense him, couldn't hear him. If I tried to pray, I felt like they just ricocheted off that ceiling. No hope. And then all of a sudden, the little teeny box that I had put God in, my entire life, about this big, that God, you can have this space of my life, but when it comes to over here, my money, my interests, my hobbies, my friends, no, you can't touch that. But you can have this space. You can have the 2 hours on Sunday morning. That's fine. He took this little teeny box that I had accidentally, I didn't even know I did it, that I had accidentally put him in, and he destroyed it. He took a wrecking ball and completely obliterated it. And I sat there in awe for the rest of the night, the beauty of God. Now, it wasn't an open-eye vision with colorful rainbows of glory and sparkles and light and nuclear bombs. It wasn't anything like that. But it was this sense that if you've ever been to the Rocky Mountains, if you've ever been to the ocean, if you've been to the Grand Canyon, where you can only know about something, you can only experience so much in a textbook, but it's when you're finally there, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. That sense of awe, that hit me, that God's alive. And from that night, he broke off pornography instantly. That was 7 years ago. Haven't viewed it since. Complete deliverance. From that moment on, I decided that I was going to play a game called How Much Can I Serve My Parents? How many times can I wash the dishes? How many times can I vacuum the floor? I was a changed person. Let me illustrate this. I was sitting down watching a TV program a couple years ago. This was right after Hurricane Katrina had devastated New Orleans. And as I was viewing this TV crew went to different neighborhoods that were particularly affected, where the surge came and took away entire neighborhoods. There were cars on top of houses. It was devastating. And they walked up to one of the few houses that wasn't destroyed, but mold was growing on the side. It was still heavily damaged. They knock on the door. A lady walks out, and she's taken back because there's 8 people. There's a microphone in front of her head. There's blaring lights. And what in the world? And then you have this charismatic guy say, "Hey, so we're just walking around here, and we don't want to know if encountering Katrina, changed the way you look at life at all. Did it affect you at all?" And she looked offended. And she looks at him and says, "How could I not have an entirely changed perspective on life going through such a powerful storm? How could I not be forever changed by experiencing those winds seeing the surge waters run up my street. How could I not be changed? Well, let me ask you a question. What's more powerful, a hurricane or God? You see, once I had a small glimpse of his beauty, of his power, my life, my perspective, my goals, my ambitions, they were all changed. Even though I had totally screwed up on a moral level, addicted to pornography, rebellion against my parents and cussing when I was 13 years old, even though I was technically a complete failure from a legal perspective, God still encountered me. I didn't do anything. I wasn't necessarily looking for it. I didn't earn it. But he came and he extended his grace and his compassion to me. A couple years later, I'm in the Bible school, and I have a dream. And in this dream, I am standing before the president of a nation that is resistant towards Christianity and his political and religious leadership. And they have my full, undivided attention. And I look at them, and I say, the gods that your nation serves don't have eyes. They can't see your problems, and they can't fix it. The gods that your nation honors don't have ears. The prayers that your people lift up, they go unanswered. Your God doesn't exist. So give me a chance to speak before your entire population. Just give me one night, one sermon. They look at each other, and the president of this nation says, okay, I'll give you what you ask. On one condition, your God must answer you. So I said, fair enough. He said, I will enable you to have the largest public square in all the nation. I'll send out a request to all of our leaders to have as many people there in person as possible. I said, good. So I left. I'm walking towards the open square. People were beginning to gather. And as I was approaching the microphone, I could hear sounds of almost like hail hitting the ground. And I turn around, and I see these little bits of broken concrete hurling through the air. I can hear them hitting the ground. Some of them hit me. The dream was so vivid, I could feel myself getting stoned. So I run away. The people have gathered. The top religious and political leaders gave me the ministry opportunity of a lifetime. You can preach the gospel to everybody freely tonight. And I run away. I was scared. I failed from that perspective. So I wake up. Torn. Wake up confused, almost disillusioned, guilty, thinking if I could have demonstrated the gospel by dying on national television as an example of the grace of God through Jesus' death,